as a Black child who went to a predominantly white school, I at least had my Black parents that I could explain to, and they would fully understand it. If you are always kind of like, it's no big deal, that your child may not feel safe to be able to come to you when they feel something, because they may be like, well, my parents are just going to say, maybe you were overthinking it, because nothing will feel great to have your parent back you up when someone's harming you or saying mean things. You want parents to fight for you.
Rihanna would throw hands and probably doesn't know how to, but would figure it out.
The pacifier falls on the floor. I need to wash it and sanitize it. Then you get to the 5th kid. Here you go.
Like, I hoard dollars. I thought I would never have it, and I wasn't used to it. Being frugal was a strategy at first. I was probably cheap at first. I would turn the lights off and unplug toaster.
So basically when people are like, hey, I'm not racist, I have a Black friend, they're lying?
They have one Black friend. No, they're not lying. They got one Black friend.
I'm Jeena.
I'm Drue.
And welcome to the Hey There Parenthood podcast. The Hey There Parenthood podcast is a podcast that fosters a diverse, inclusive village
for raising confident and loved children.
So we are so excited today. We have the Schoeller family. Oh, I said that. Can you say that? Well, we're so excited to have the Schoeller. The Schoeller family. Schoeller. We're so excited to have the Schoeller family with us today. So it's my part for my segment, and I thought this was really interesting because I saw this on TikTok, and I want to know your thoughts because I know how I grew up, and I know you grew up extremely different than I did.
School absences have exploded almost everywhere. Share of U.S. students who are chronically absent, 28% in 2022 and 26% in 2023. What? Also, look at this.
It was 15% beforehand.
15% back in the day. 15% of you guys weren't showing up to school? What?
What's chronically absent, though?
I would say probably be more than a couple times a year.
Oh my goodness.
So you guys don't know, up until junior year of high school, I never missed a day of school. From kindergarten to junior year of high school, I never missed a day of school. My parents, I was sick, go to school. You got to go to the dentist. I don't know if that's what
for you.
You have to have a half of a day for it to still count as you went to school. I got that half day. So even if I had a doctor's appointment, which was very rare, the times where they would call me out to go to the doctor was extremely rare. And I would go to the doctor on Saturdays. But I also went
That's
to
hardcore right there.
Hardcore. And so the idea that there was 15%, that was not me. I think that's still really high. I'm jealous. I went to junior year of high school before I ever skipped. And then I skipped a lot. And then I was
like a combustion, just like everything came out.
Once I had that one day, and it was by accident, I could just tell it real quick. Pretty much what ended up happening was we were supposed to do college tours, right? And then I asked the secretary in the office, hey, if I go on a college tour, does it count as an absence, right? And she's like, no, we encourage it. If you go to a college tour, it does not count as an absence. What she meant to say is an excused absence, but it still counts. And so then when I came back and brought them my little note and said, here, I went to a college and I was gone for 3 days and that's it. She's like, yeah, it still counts as an absence. I was like, no, that's not what you said last time. So I'm there crying because my parents were like, you said that it wasn't going to count as an absence. That's what they told me. That's what they said. And so then once I figured out I messed up my perfect attendance since kindergarten, I was like, forget this. It's not worth it anymore. And then I started skipping school to go to my friend's house so we could play Guitar Hero.
That's why we moved from 15 to 28% because you started skipping. Yeah. You started the trend.
But I also want to hear your thoughts because I still am that parent that I will give, if my kids are sick, they can have a day off. But I don't like the idea of just willy-nilly.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up completely different. The way I grew up is, I remember, this was my whole life, but this is the one I remember is 9th grade. And my mom was like, man, I had a really hard week at work and tax money came in. You want to go to the beach for a week? I was like, it is like, I think this was in like September. School had just started, or maybe it was November finals. It really didn't matter to me. I was like, yeah, let's go. So like no school excuse, nothing. We just went to the beach for a week. And I remember when I was 16, I had a girlfriend that her uncle was getting married in Jamaica and they were going to be gone for 2 weeks. And I said, Mom, can I go? And she said, well, I don't have any money. And I said, no, I've been saving up. I can pay for my plane tickets and any meals. And she's like, sure, yeah, you go ahead. So I went to Jamaica at 16, just like skipped 2 weeks of school, like,
When with a girlfriend? No, my Haitian parents were like, yeah, you wish. And then it's 2 weeks of schools. I couldn't even get a couple of hours.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Wow.
So on a serious note, I do think it's gone up because of COVID and because parents were like, if like my kids can miss so much school because COVID and they still seem okay, like it's not that important now. That's honestly what I think it is.
But the issue is that they're not okay. Like kids are.
I turned out okay.
No, teachers are talking about how like a lot of students.
Kids now, yeah, they're not as tough as we were.
Oh man, okay, I'm gonna stop. No, teachers are talking about the fact like a lot of kids are struggling because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
That parents may think that their kids are okay, but they're not. And
put your kids in school. Make sure they attend.
Do you really believe he feels that way?
I do.
So today we have the Schoeller family who is going to be on our podcast. We're so excited to have them on. They are a adoptive family, a multicultural family who's transracially adopted their daughter Tiana. And I want to say they adopted her when she's
pretty young.
Yeah.
So you can find the Schoeller family on YouTube and follow
on
their
TikTok
travels
and on Instagram.
Yep.
You can like follow their family and their travels because I mean, I thought we traveled. Yeah, no.
No, they put us to shame.
They have traveled so many places. Really, we haven't gone that. We've gone to Haiti, Canada, Mexico. They beat it. They put us to shame.
Yeah.
We've gone to Caribbean countries, and they're like, well, Middle East, Europe. They're going, like Drew said, they're going to Bali. So they're such an amazing family. We're so excited to have them on our podcast, and we get to just chat about multicultural families and adoption and just parenting.
Yeah. Welcome to our podcast.
Yeah. We're so glad that you guys can join us. We have the Schoeller family. I said that right?
Nope, it was close though. So
Schoeller.
Shoulder without the D. Schoeller.
Schoeller. Okay.
There you go.
So we have the Schoeller family with us today. Drew, you said it weird, so at least I was closer.
I was saying school, like schooler.
Well, how did you get that?
I don't know. That's what we do in the South. We just put a bunch of like stuff together and go with it.
That's what you do, and you're in the South. I had a really like crazy French like last name, my maiden name, and whenever people would like try to get it, they couldn't get it, so they just called me like the cheese provolone. And so Schoeller.
Schoeller.
Like
Gosh darn it.
My whole maiden name is crazy too, Rihanna Fariel Rosalind, and so I my whole life like people call me a blend of things, and I'm just like, okay.
Nobody says Rihanna right.
No,
Ever.
oh, never.
Rihanna.
Oh, I say Rihanna.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I would say
Rihanna,
nobody, but
Rihanna.
most of the time it's Rihanna because they're so used to the singer.
Oh, but I think even
It's supposed to be Rihanna. I think.
Rihanna.
She says Rihanna
Yeah.
because she's like from Barbados, I think.
That's
so
probably
she
how she
pronounces
knows
it right.
who actually knows her from her childhood and stuff. Like who's a celebrity, who knows her. I've
look
seen
at
celebrities
that.
do that before.
Well, people call me Jenna too, and then like every once in a while they'll be like, "You let me go on." Like I've been saying Jenna forever. I'm like, I figured you'd get it eventually. Oh, well, we're so excited to have the Schoeller.
Yeah,
There you go.
there you
Schoeller.
go.
Yeah, we're so excited to have the Schoeller family with us today because you guys are like an adoptive family, multicultural family as well. And so I think that's like a lot how people know both of us because I know we went to Disney together and then a lot of your fan base and your followers like noticed like, hey, you have the Wilder family. And they're like, so we're both like a multicultural adoptive family. And I like started following you guys. I feel like a year and a half ago, because I know we've been following each other on Instagram for a little bit.
Yes, definitely.
And I always just love how you care for like Tiana's hair, because you guys know I'm obsessed with like hairstyles and like hair care. But you've done such a great job with Tiana's hair, and so I've always just like admired by it. I think a lot of other like Black adoptive parents or Black parents are always just like, yeah, no, Tiana's hair, it looks always on point. Like, we know, like, Rihanna does such a great job. She always, like, her hair health too. I'm just gonna ramble on. Her hair health. Even this morning, I saw like her curls. She has so much shrinkage. She has such healthy hair.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I loved her hair this morning because it's like totally out, and then I like puffed it up and everything. So she has her 2 big puffs. It looks like a mohawk.
Yeah.
But yeah, we love hair time, and it's getting more fun like as she's getting older, because she is more into choosing the styles and she can sit still a bit longer. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, have y'all done the ballies and barrettes yet? I feel like you have.
We've done ballies. The flower barrettes we've tried, but they're not her favorite because they like poke and stuff. But she likes beads. Like, she only ever wants beads. If you let her choose something, it's beads every time.
Always, You know, it's funny. I said we're doing a bunch of cute hairstyles for Cal, because I'm wanting to try. They're like, it's like a childhood like memory staple. You have to have the memory of the ballies and the barrettes hitting your face. And so I laughed, and Tiana's like, yeah, I don't like barrettes. Like, they just poke me in the face and like hit me. But it's also like a core memory. And I was like, I don't do a lot of barrettes because I didn't like it. But then I was like, hey, I feel like I'm depriving our kids of this memory. They need to have barrettes. And so I'm excited to see. I don't know, I just really just admire all that you do for Tiana's hair, because it's just, growing up, sometimes you just don't always have like the best, at least for Black little girls. I remember just feeling like, hey, I want my hair to look this way. I want it to look a certain way. I wish I was straight. I wish it was long. But I never felt like I had a bad hair day. And I wouldn't want, like, you just don't want your kid to ever feel like that. And I feel like you've done such a great job in making sure that she always feels really confident in her hair, and not just feel confident, but also just put so much time in making sure that her hair is healthy so that she ends up loving her hair.
I'd have to say it was a hidden talent that I didn't know Rihanna had. So that was a learning curve for us, honestly, in the multicultural thing. Like, we had how important hair was. And so we were quickly told about it. Like, when Tiana first came to us, her hair wasn't what you see today. And so people would come out of their way. They thought that it was that way because of us, or whatever the case may be. And they would go out of their way and come up and point out, hey, you guys have to do a better job. And we kind of took it as like maybe rude at first, but they were just, probably being, caring, and probably didn't want that to continue. So we were doing the best we could at that time, but then Rihanna out of nowhere was like, I'm going to try to do her hair, and just knocked it out of the park.
Did you take any classes?
Backstory, no, but little backstory, I knew how to cornrow and braid and like beads and everything before Tiana, because my best friend in middle school, shout out Ashley Carter, she like taught me how to cornrow. She would cornrow my hair, and she taught me how to cornrow her hair so that I could do her hair like when her mom was too busy and stuff. And so, like, this is just really random, but she would do, when I would have sleepovers at her house and stuff, she would braid the front, and then she would taught me so I could do the back because she couldn't see it. And then, like, as we got a little older, like, she could do the back too. But so that is how I knew how to like use gel and part and everything like that. But I hadn't done it in like a very long time. But
and
I feel
on a
like,
baby.
Yeah, and on a baby. And I feel like the braiding is kind of like a muscle memory. So once I did a few, then I was like, wait, I kind of remember how to do this. And then I went on social media to get like kids' hair tips and style ideas and everything, watching videos from like, there's a Kel's Gorgeous, and there's like a bunch of other pages where they show like tips and tricks. And so that's how it just kind of like expanded from there. But I did have like knowledge and everything of it before, so that was very helpful.
But it's the amount of effort and time it takes. And for those who do or do not understand or have never been through it, there's a lot of effort and time that goes into that. And so super thankful for you and the time you take, because I'd have to hire it out, full disclosure. Because sometimes I've seen you and Tiana sit there for 2 hours and to do her hairstyle. And it's impressive the patience you have both of you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just incredible. So yeah, thank you for appreciating it, because I get to watch behind the scenes. It's crazy.
You think that I don't, like, Drew, tell him I sometimes hire it out too.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't
even though
want
I
you-
know how to do
Yeah.
it, there's some things that it's just like, your kids will always sometimes behave a little bit better for somebody
Oh, yeah.
else than for you, right? And your kids will be like, well, I want this and I want that and I want the TV, I want this show and I want all the snacks. Like, being able to just like say, hey, we're gonna go get your hair done, and they'll be usually a lot faster, and so they'll
Yes.
sit down, they'll do it a lot faster. So I usually will go for haircuts because I will not cut my kids' hair. I think I can feel confident. Like, I think I could do it.
Yeah, I
I
think-
just don't want to. And so there's certain things I will always just like, what's the word? I will hire it out. And there are a lot of other Black parents who like don't do their kids' hair, not because they can. Sometimes it's just they don't know how to cornrow or they don't know how to do some styles. But also it's just a lot easier to go to a profession who can do it way faster and make sure that it can last.
I think that's anybody. Like, once you get past the maintenance part, like everybody kind of like shampoos and conditions their hair. But once you get to like the braiding or cutting and stuff, like, I think that's most people like that put that out. I think, honestly, I think black hair just has a lot more maintenance, stages to it. You look at my hair versus your hair.
Okay, but
Like, I just throw a little
but I just
shampoo,
let my hair
conditioner,
and twist
just go.
for like a week and
But
a
how
half.
did they get twisted? How'd your hair get twisted?
I could have done it by myself. I just went to somebody because I didn't want to do it.
Exactly. I mean, I could fade my own hair,
Yeah, right.
but
Yeah,
I go
right.
to somebody else.
Okay, you do one. I was cutting your hair for years.
I just cut mine before we got. I've cut my own hair for 10 years, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And you know, it's not even just about like the money saving from the haircut; it's the time.
Yeah,
like going
true.
to sit in the barber chair and waiting the 20 minutes and all that, and then sometimes it doesn't even end up being a good cut. And I was $40, $50 later after a tip. I just go do it in the bathroom. I literally this is from me. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I tell Rihanna, so I can't come down. Sometimes I come downstairs like I use the wrong guard.
Blade.
I use the wrong guard again. It is like completely gone. I've done that.
Don't you number them?
Yeah, they're all numbered, but sometimes I'm ADHD. I'm cruising, right? So I throw the 2 on there to fade right here, and then I thought I switched it out for another one, and you hear it. You know when it happens. And I'm like, and you can't stop now. So I go all the way through. But with Tiana, I think we've made her one appointment, and then it didn't work out because we ended up traveling. But literally,
She
it's
asked
never
for one.
Yeah, we really wanted to
yeah.
try and give her that experience of going to the shop to get it done, but not yet. So every style you've seen so far has literally been done by Rihanna, and you could definitely see the pros though. Like if you went to the shop, yes, she would probably sit still a little bit better, and all that stuff, and just the timing. The timing. It's an hour
And
and a
they're
half, 2 hours.
professionals, so no matter what, it's like if you do your own nails, it's never going to be as good as like
Right.
when you go get your nails done. She has a book where all the little girls go on a date to the salon. And so ever since we got that book, now she's like, when do I get to go to the salon? Like, how old do I need to be to go to the salon? And so we've been like, maybe for her 6th birthday or something, where we want it to be like something special.
Look,
It's also the thing that we're judged on the most, like in our comment section and stuff like that. It's like
hair.
if we're vloggers, right? So we don't look perfect every day. Like some days you'll just get us when we're just out at the playground playing around, and maybe that morning Tiana was playing in the couch and wrestling around with me because and so her hair's has some frizz to it or whatever. And I feel like sometimes people are just looking for that. Oh, her hair's frizzy today. I think we got a comment last week or whatever, and I focus on this more than I should sometimes. It's hard. Comments are hard, but it was just like, oh, Rihanna's getting lazy. Look at her hair today. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like all the time
Because I
Rihanna's
put it
hair-
in a puff, like one big puff, like a ponytail, instead of a style for the week, because she asked, like she actually likes puffs the best. Like she says, I love my puffs. And so it doesn't bother me because I know they're just like judging based off one thing. But like if we open a vlog and it looks like she just woke up and I've already taken her bonnet off, then everybody says, you know, she needs to sleep with a bonnet. But I'm like, well, I didn't show you me taking it off.
Yeah.
But it's like a lot of times from a place of caring. Sometimes people are just looking for a reason to pick with you, and I just kind of like.
Do you feel like you'd get the same reactions though if Tiana was white?
Oh no, probably not. I know that we're probably watched, and maybe fair, but I think we're probably watched more harshly because of the multicultural thing.
Well, and because it's not as big of a thing in white culture. Like people just, like, our hair is just like, people just straighten their hair or throw it up in a ponytail, and it's not so important. So to like identity, I feel like almost maybe when she was like 2, she'd be wanting me to do hers. And then I was like, oh no, like I don't want her to think you need to wake up and straighten your hair. A group of people think that we should not have adopted Tiana, that we shouldn't be allowed to adopt a black child because we're white, and that we can't adequately care for her because we don't understand. So I think that that mindset, or people who think that want to find something that we're doing wrong, because you can tell the difference when somebody says like, hey, you should try this brush because I noticed this, and like this is what happens when they let like you adopt kids that aren't the same race.
The difference in the two comments.
You can definitely understand the tone.
Right, because that's not constructive criticism. That's just borderline hate.
Yeah.
You know, it's not saying, hey, I know, I noticed Tiana's hair's a little frizzy, and have you tried using this oil? You may not have used it before. I haven't seen it in your videos. Like that would be the kind of like constructive criticism that you would expect from, I think, anybody, right? Or like friends, family, stranger on the street, whatever. But just sitting there and saying like, yeah, like her hair's frizzy, this is why you shouldn't adopt. It's just like there's no positivity that's coming from that. There's nothing you can do to take that comment and make something good out of it.
They've done studies on this where the one negative, right? 1,000 people can tell you look beautiful today. It only takes one person to say, your hair looks a little messed up today, or your teeth or whatever, and you will just fixate on that. And I think we just do it as humans.
It's hard for you because you want to like explain or like change you want to like change their mind. I don't respond to bad comments or mean comments because I feel like if I cannot respond to every single positive comment because I'm too busy, then I'm not responding to any mean ones because the positive people deserve me to respond.
And I know she's right. It's just hard for me. I know she's right. That's how you should go about it. And I've gotten a lot better. I used to dig on each one.
Have you ever seen Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet?
No,
Nothing has been more true than that movie. You've seen it, right?
We've seen it a bunch of times.
Yeah, so Wreck-It Ralph, you guys know who that is?
It's like a movie character. Yeah.
Yeah, so they came out with Breaks the Internet. At one point, Wreck-It Ralph needs to make some money on the internet to buy something off eBoy.
E-boys so they can fix their game, their arcade broke.
Okay. So him and Vanellope, I believe, start making videos online, like funny videos of Wreck-It Ralph doing viral stuff. And someone told him not to look at the comments. I can't remember who it was. And so he makes all this money. They make enough, like they're on track to buy and fix their game. And then he finds the comment section.
Oh no.
And it just totally destroys him. He just like gives it all up. He shuts his channel down. He's just like done.
We had somebody leaving like repetitively like racist comments, super inappropriate, super racist, directed at Tiana.
The word in itself is not inherently bad, but you will see what. So basically, it was us three, the only three in this video. We were touring an abandoned property, so there's no one else they could be talking about. And they basically, the comment said, "Where did you get the monkey?" And right off the bat, I read it, got angry, and I commented. This is early, right? And so I said, I'm going to give you a chance to apologize. That's basically what I said. I'll let you apologize and remove this comment. And then they doubled down. And the next comment was worse. I said, okay. And for better or for worse, I was just heated. Like, it's a lot for me. It's my daughter. I posted it on my Instagram story where I have a lot of followers. And some are in police background.
Like FBI.
Yeah. And they were like, hey, not only did I find them my address, wife, place of work, here's the fence and a video that matches his exact house, and I got all the information I needed. And so I quickly
sounds like you're about to do something wrong.
Yeah, no, I did not go there, but I looked it all up, and unfortunately for him, his manager,
His
and
boss.
his boss at his work was African American, and so I forwarded all the comments and the screenshots. And to my knowledge, that individual was quickly released from a job that they had for a very long time.
Yeah, his boss said he got let go for inappropriate activity. Basically.
And so maybe I went too far, but
I don't think you went too far.
Here's the issue, right? How many people is he commenting that on? So it's not just
or
probably,
what's he doing in everyday life?
Yes,
Like he might not be saying it blatantly, but if he believes that and he's interacting with people in everyday life and thinking like his mindset's okay, like just wild.
Right. So not only that, but like thankfully Tiana obviously she can't read yet, so she's not in her comments, and that's going to be a discussion for later whether we leave them on or not when she can read. But what if there's a 14-year-old out there trying to make their own channel or whatever, and this person is doing that to them, and now where internet bullying could lead to worst case scenario. So I was like, I feel like I had the energy, I had the time, right? I had the time to do something about it, and I did, but it took a lot of energy for me. It took a lot of time for me, and I understand that. And again, those are mostly faded. We still get them occasionally, and of course they're blocked and stuff. So if you're reading our comments, you really wouldn't see them. But that was just one example. But that's also when I started to realize, like, I'm not going to be able. If we're going to continue this, I can't continue that, right? But now
sometimes though.
Yes. Do you
Drew will
still
tell you some of the things that I've done, and I've done the same exact thing. Where there was one person who repetitively did the same thing, would write, comments about our families, and then I found out he was a pediatric orthopedic at a hospital in the UK. And tagged the hospital and everything, and I was like, man, would you say this to your patients? Like do your patients have to be aware? And like tag the hospital that he worked at, tag all. I had the time that day, and I try to, and actually I make a huge effort to always respond to the positive comments, but sometimes I have time. There are times, and I will, if you are able to be as unintelligent or stupid to have all your information out there, then you are also allowing me to, if you're going to be me, I'm going to give you the same respect that you give me. And so if you are stupid enough to put all your information out there and I can easily find it, because I did not have like the police helping me. You're
the police.
I was a police. I was an FBI agent. If you need me to help you find if your husband's cheating, I can help you. It's not something you should be applauded for, because I think it's something that you should already be doing. But I'm also happy that you are doing it, because I've seen a lot of a white adoptive parent who are just like, it's not like that. They didn't mean it that way. It's just like they think that way, but they would never harm. And just technically they are harming, whether or not if they're actually doing something physically or if they're just saying words, that is still very harmful to that child who, if they're in a family that may not look like them, right? Then not that I don't think you guys will support her, right? But it does feel differently. I've been at schools where like it's a predominantly white school and you're surrounded by other people who don't look like you. Then when you explain things, you almost feel like you're over explaining, because you feel like, man, I don't think you really truly understand how harmful this has hurt me. That having a parent, like for me as a Black child who went to a predominantly white school, I at least had my Black parents that I could explain to and they would fully understand it. And so if you are always kind of like, it's no big deal, that your child may not feel safe to be able to come to you when they feel something, because they may be like, well, my parents are just going to say, it doesn't mean like that. Maybe you were overthinking it. And so to hear you guys, like, I know some people are like, you took it too far. And I'm like, no, I don't think so, because nothing will feel great to have your parent back you up when someone's harming you or saying mean things. And I really appreciate that Tiana has that in you. So I'm in the same place. I'm very petty. I always find the time. Drew is a person that's super kind, and that's great. We balance each other out.
Same over here.
Balance each other out, but I also feel like it'll be important for Tiana to have that someone who will fight for her, because you want parents to fight for you. You don't want your parents to be like not on your side.
Yeah, I have no doubt that if somebody physically with Tiana, Rihanna would throw hands and probably doesn't know how to, but would figure it out. But Rihanna's also, and I talked about this in a recent vlog, like I believe someone could come up and like hit Rihanna. Hey, this happened the other day in the store. No, let me tell it.
She didn't hit me.
She didn't, but she comes back. Tiana and I were waiting in the car, and Rihanna was like, I believe this lady, I needed to get something in the fridge in front of her. And I believe after I did that, she said the lady didn't look exactly stable anyway, but she said, hit her pushed her in the ribs.
And
she was
checked me.
Body checked her, but she was so surprised that she actually was that on purpose. And then she realized, like, within a couple seconds, this is the story you told me, that you did realize it. And I was like, why was I not there, right? but also, like, you're just that type of, like, you were upset about it.
Let me tell what happened really fast. Okay. I'll break it down. So I was in the store. This lady was on her phone looking for something she needed to get out of the case, like, obviously researching it. So I said, oh, excuse me. And like, I could get in front of her without saying excuse me, but I was just trying to be nice. So then I got my thing out of the fridge, shut the door, and like turned around to walk away. And then I felt like somebody like body checked me. And then I like turned because I was like surprised. And then she said, oh, sorry. And then I said like, oh, it's okay. And like out of instinct, I was like, oh, you're fine. And then I was like, and then I just didn't move for a second. And I was like, I'm pretty sure she just did that because she was mad. And then I was like, well, maybe she like tripped.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So she would give anybody like that benefit of the doubt, or like, and it's true, we never know what people are going through. But I think that only goes so far. Like, I understand you might have a bad day, maybe a lot of things are going on in your life, but that shouldn't have to carry that burden or that hate. But you know, she probably lived longer than me, right? Because my stress level.
I didn't process that fast. Like, I was like, like when I was looking back, I thought I should have said, oh, did me getting the cheese out of the fridge in front of you really make you that mad that you had to physically touch me? But I couldn't process the situation fast
That's
enough.
a microcosm of just who you are, though, because you're quickly to give somebody the benefit of the doubt of like, that wasn't on purpose, or that wasn't intentional, or they're uneducated. You'll insert a lot of excuses first, and I think that's ultimately a great way to live. I think that, and I love and adore that about you. And I'm glad that we're both not just on that ready, because I have my share of like in traffic incidents or whatever, and I'm just an on edge person. But and it sounds like you guys are the same like that, but just opposite who does it. But I think it balances us out. But it's really tough for me to not. I was bullied a lot growing up in school because I was really small all the way until 12th grade. I hit my growth spurt at the middle of 12th grade, like the worst time, like for sports and everything, right? I was literally like 5'4", 110 pounds until 11th grade. Wow. And then I grew 6 inches over one summer, and then I started bodybuilding and stuff like that. But it was too little, too late for most high school things, and especially like 9th, 10th, and 11th grade was just tough for me because
he got bullied really bad.
I was the small, like I was like one of the smallest. I was the smallest kid. Most people, like on my license and stuff, most people were like, I was like 16, and they were like, "Are you 12? Are you 13?" Most of the time, that's how small I was. I'll show you guys pictures after this podcast. You're like, hey, you could drive then? And now looking back, I was like, oh my gosh. Even my girlfriend at prom was like 4 inches taller than me, right? My belt looped all the way around and sagged off the end because it was an adult belt, but it could, I had to poke a hole with a knife to make extra holes in the belt. So anyway, I grew up that way, and so I'm super on edge about bullying and stuff. And so I don't think you dealt with that as much.
No, I was lucky, like, I didn't experience bullying really growing up, like any more than normal, like a normal, like, oh, like you have those old shoes on, like, but nothing like consistent.
Physical appearance and stuff. So that's where, for Tiana, I'm really on edge. And people, I've explained this in a previous vlog, like with her speech therapy and then going through that. Like, I'm really worried that. Right now she's 5, but you know, as kids get 6, 7, and 8, those mouths they get braver or not. I don't even say mean, but they don't know how to censor themselves. Yeah. Is that fair? So they could, what's wrong with the way you talk or whatever? And so I'm really like on edge about that, and so I'm really worried. So we're doing as much as we can for us in all aspects. But Jeena, to your point, sometimes you got the time.
I see, but now I feel like Rihanna, we need to, because I'm hearing that you were not the kid in front of the mirror, like coming up with scenarios and coming up with quick comebacks. Because that's all I did as a kid. Like in the mirror, like, okay, I was like, I'm a breakdance. If we have to have a breakdance fight, if someone says this, I will say that. Like, I remember doing that as a kid. So I know that you did not. We could practice. Me and you, we can practice. Because
That's funny. Because I just had brothers. And so I had one brother that was like physically aggressive and one brother that was like verbally aggressive. I was like, okay, so if I need quick-witted, I'm going to go to this brother. He's got all the cover. If I need to get in a fight, I'm bringing this brother. He's got me. You know? So.
Oh, so you never did that either?
No.
Oh, that's so sad.
I was like the Eminem character. I wanted to make fun of myself. You remember Eminem at the end of baseball? He made fun of himself so the dude couldn't say anything back. That's how he won that battle, essentially. And I don't know if before or after the movie, but I compare it to that because it was probably before. I don't remember when that movie came. You're an Eminem fan, but another fun fact about Rihanna, she knows every Eminem lyric ever, just randomly. But I would just I would beat you to the punch. I would pick on my height or I would pick on my weight before you could get to me. So I was the class clown. I was often in trouble for making everybody laugh, but that was my defense mechanism. Mm-hmm. My defense mechanism, I would get you to laugh to like me, or I would say something about myself quicker than you could say. Because what can you say to me now if I've already said it? Because also I lived in a trailer. Like all these things were attack points. And so I remember one day I was late to school and I was coming in and I said to my teacher, I said, oh yeah, sorry I was late. I had to park my trailer in the parking lot. And then the whole class laughed. And that quickly dismisses anybody being able to attack me because I already said I live in a trailer. What are you going to say to me? And so anyway, how that's full circle back to Tiana, it's our difference in childhood in that respect, but also just our demeanor in general. And so it's cool that you guys have that, but on opposites.
Well, that also brings me, I remember you telling us, which I don't know, you grew up in the foster care system.
Rihanna.
No, was Rihanna? Okay.
Yes. I spent like 1 year in the foster care system. So I didn't grow up in foster care like for a super extended period of time. But when my sister and I went into the foster care system because our parents had like a very bad divorce and like he said, she said, like nobody could figure anything out. So they're just like, okay, well, they're coming with us. And so we stayed in foster care and for about a year, and we were together, thankfully. Mm-hmm. And then we were reunited with my mom. And so then my mom got permanent custody of us, and we grew up with my mom. And my mom and I are close now. So it was like an experience that taught me what foster care was, and also what foster to adopt was, because we had like a sibling group of 3 as well who stayed with our foster family and got adopted. And we're still like friends with them on Facebook and everything. So I kind of saw like that progression. And just, I feel like if I didn't have that experience, I might not realize what it is.
Do you feel like it influenced you to become foster parents?
Oh, definitely. Because we talked about it when we were like 20. We were like, oh, like we could do foster care, we could adopt. And I feel like it was just always in my mind to do that because of the experience.
The adoption thing, I think that was we said it, but we actually got to a point where we didn't want to have kids. Now, obviously not because we didn't like kids, but we were just getting older. We were traveling. We were reaching a point of financial freedom in our life.
Like 25 though. We weren't like old.
Right. No, I'm talking about even when we actually became to do foster. The adoption thing wasn't like.
Yeah. We said we'll just. So we didn't go into foster care saying we're adopting a child. We went into foster care saying we're going to be foster parents and help. And then we got certified. They were like, oh, well, you can get certified to adopt when you get certified to foster. It's easier that way. So
I still think you tricked me a little bit. It's only one more piece of paper at the foster application if you would like to eventually adopt as well. Just one more piece of paper.
The door open. They were leading you.
Yeah, they were too, but also probably over here.
But we had talked about adopting, then we got to a point where like we could just be like dinks, like dual income, no kids, and just like travel around. And then we're like, okay, well, let's foster, because like if we don't do it, we might not have the chance to again. And that's how it all turned out.
Yeah,
because y'all intentionally, like, you were choosing not to have kids. You were just wanting to foster. And then after a while, you were like, oh, like, hey, Tiana's gonna need a home, I'd rather her be with someone that she's been with since she was so little. Because she entered your family really young.
11 months.
yeah.
And so she entered at 11 months. We then found out maybe 3 or 4 months later that we could adopt her. And so in the meantime, we had like a few like, oh, like that so-and-so is going to take her. So this is going to happen. And it never played out.
Well, we prepared ourselves
So you
because
guys are trying to reunify? Like,
yeah, so they said the likelihood of a minority being adopted, not going to somebody in the family, especially in West Virginia, where it's such a low diversity number. They said it's almost never the case
Yes.
where another family. It's usually only white children that actually get adopted out.
They
to
literally
third party.
said like,
Prepare yourselves. It's not going to.
Black families, Spanish families,
Indian.
Indian families, they take care of like their own kids. Like they said it'll be rare that somebody won't step in to help because they
Aunt,
don't.
grandmother, somebody like that.
Yeah, and then they said it's usually in West Virginia the kids that end up not getting reunified are usually white.
Yep.
So they said we're in a kind of unusual situation anyway for our area.
So actually, with this story, there's a couple things we can clear up. A lot of people think that we went out of our way to adopt a black child. That's not what happened at all. In fact, we had a sub 1% chance of getting any child outside of a white.
John wanted to foster teenagers.
Yeah, I wanted to help those because they're the
yeah.
ones that are least likely to get help. I think it's after age 12 it falls off the charts. So anyway, so that's a common misconception that we chose to have a black child or a black baby. Another thing is they automatically assume that she's from a foreign country. So she's actually from Dunbar, West Virginia, 20 minutes from where we live. We're literally fostering. There's a bad drug epidemic in our state, and we noticed this, and we were like, hey, we have the means and time to help. Let's try to help. That's how this whole thing got started. So we actually got 2 calls before Tiana, and neither one of them came to fruition. We don't even know what type of children those were, their ages or anything like that. But then Tiana, I think was the third. We got our hopes up on these other 2, and they never came to fruition. So on the third call, I actually went to basketball that night because it was like the same thing again. They're going to say, and I'm at basketball, and Rihanna calls me and is like, she's going to be here in an hour. I literally left. I was in the middle of the game. I got home. If you watch that, I think we did a vlog on it or something. My face is flush red for playing basketball. Ran home. They brought us down. They would say full disclosure. They brought us. Tiana came to us with just the clothes she was wearing and 1 book.
In a sippy cup.
In a sippy cup. That's all she had, right? And we knew nothing much more. But they were like, hey, this is probably very temporary. Somebody's going to step in. A couple weeks later, nobody. A month or 2, 3 months later. We don't going to go into too many details. We feel like a lot of this story will be hers to tell when she's older. But basically, they sent us a text. It was like, hey, we probably need to get her adopted, or, so
Permanent.
either you guys have to, or we actually need to put her back into the system so that she's available. I mean, and I think
How long did she live with you at this
at
point?
4 to 6 months. Of this,
No, it was like 2 or 3 months. It was
our timelines were
It was
different on
fast.
that, and I feel like it was longer than it was, but she's probably right. But it was subconsciously she wasn't going anywhere. Okay, but verbally saying that for me was like, whoa, that's an 18-year commitment in the house. It's a lifelong commitment. Every other was like, children are for life, but 18 years in the home, and we had our own plans, right? We were getting ready to go do our endless travel and have all our time together, all the things we worked so hard for. But I was in love within seconds, right? Sorry, I get a little emotional. You knew this was going to happen. Sorry. I was in love within seconds, and so she wasn't going anywhere, but it was making that decision of like that commitment, right? Going from no kids to this, and they told us it wasn't going to be a possibility. So I had
already had just like taken away all the possibility of that ever happening.
and I had to do that to protect myself.
Naturally, you are more. I'm immediate decision maker. Like I'll be like, oh yeah, no, like we're good.
It could have
And
been
he
20
always
kids.
says, we need to we need to sleep on it. Like no matter what situation is, tell them we need 24 hours. Like he's so rational. And I'm like, we don't need 24 hours.
Yeah,
Like we don't need to sleep on anything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I had to think of everything. There's so many things that were going to change. Our lives were going to change completely, but so was hers. And honestly, like I would never be able to live with myself, not only for me saying no, but separating those two, right? The love that they already shared. So anyway, I don't know if you remember this or not. I still have the picture. So we hadn't said yes yet, and this was like the next day. And unbeknownst to her, she's still waiting on me to like give the green light or whatever. And I sent a text to the agency and I said, "What's the next steps?" And do you remember? Mm-hmm. And so she ran and hugged Tiana. Sorry, you knew it was going to happen. Sorry,
no, it's completely fine. It's a beautiful thing. Like at the core of it, it just feels a lot of love.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's what it was. So I took the picture after I sent the text and she got it and she ran and hugged Tiana and that wasn't it. COVID happened.
We had a few more bumps in the road and like false like worries. But like I really feel like everything worked out how it's supposed to. Like we ended up in West Virginia, like I just feel like it was all supposed to happen like that. Like the first couple kids we didn't actually get, and Tiana's just so like perfect for us, like for our family. She's just like the best kid. And people assume we had infertility issues.
No medical issues that we know about. We just literally, like your sister and stuff, and I just didn't have the best upbringing myself. And I thought, full disclosure again, I didn't think I'd be a good dad. Now I've just really surprised myself, but I thought like I didn't have the perfect examples. So I was like, I don't think that I should probably put this on my children because I have anxiety. I suffer from depression today. Mm-hmm. And I was like, are these things going to leak over into my child? Because that's not, don't want to, but I think what it is like you may be a better parent for that in some ways because you know what not to do. Mm-hmm. Like what are the things that bothered you the most? So like, one of the things we both were probably beyond spanked. And again, I'm not judging anybody for listening to this podcast.
It was also kind of the generation we grew up in.
I still have the authority in the house with her, though. I don't know if this works between you two, but my voice, the sound of my voice, is it opposite for you guys, or is it still Drew?
My voice is pretty good when I'm like super serious.
Yes.
I typically don't get in that mode. Like I'm doing that super stern, like you have to do this or this is what we're doing. So when that does switch for me, all the kids are like, huh?
Mm-hmm. But so Tiana gets away with more with Rihanna. But if I'm like, time for bed, it's time for bed. Or if I'm like, TV off, listen.
Honestly, I don't know if I believe that because one of the things I was talking about you guys somewhat, and I was like, I would say the only fault that I see in them is the fact that Tiana says, I want this. And they're like, how high?
Yes.
How much money? Let's go do it. Like with Disney, literally Tiana was like, let's go here. And you're like, let's go. Yes. Like, no question. Y'all love and spoil that girl so much.
To a fault. It's good. I think it will maybe get us, but we're trying now.
It's situational.
I think it's situational because the fact is like, I think we were like that with Panda with our first. Mm-hmm. And then as you have more kids, it kind of like makes it different. Mm-hmm. And so I think because she's the only child and she's your first, like I think it's like a natural thing that I think what most parents do with their first. Like where the pacifier falls on the floor. I need to wash it and sanitize it. Then you get to the 5th kid. There you go. And so I definitely don't like I say it in a joyful way, but I also don't see it in a bad way. I see it as a very typical thing that I think we did. Mm-hmm. I see most parents do. With your first, you are just like it's your first. It's your first child. It's your I guess it'd be different. Like you guys weren't expecting to adopt or anything like that, but still, when you love your child and it's your first, it just ends up being how it is. I don't know how better way to say it other than I don't see it as a bad. You spoil them.
Do you find it hard too, being like? And I don't know how you guys grew up financially or anything like that, but we didn't come from a lot, and we're able to do these things for Tiana, and we're also, I'd say we're a little bit limited outside of brand deals that just send toys and stuff like that. But we limit her a lot on the things. Material. But of course, she's traveling the world at such a young age and she gets to experience so much. But we're able to provide that for her. And it's this fine line I find of like, how much of this should we not give her to teach her a lesson that life's not like this versus... No, you're able... Like, is it a limit? I don't know if it's a limiting belief that we shouldn't...
I think that's
provide
more
her
of a
this stuff.
parenting.
It's a
I think
parenting,
it's
and
more
we're
of a
both kind of different on
parenting
that.
style because in my mind, like someone can be super rich and super bratty, right? But then someone can be super poor and super bratty.
Yes.
Like to me, it's not so much a material thing, but more of a parenting style in the way that you parent your kids.
But also your childhood, and like you said, your childhood influence. I feel the same way. Drew, we grew up very differently. I grew up middle class. I remember buying like a $600 prom dress, and like I snuck and bought it, and then my dad was like, please don't do that again. And then I never had to worry about whether or not the like light bill, like I never had to worry about whether or not we'd be able to pay for any of the bills. And it wasn't until I became an adult with my own kids and I look back on it and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I didn't recognize how blessed I was, because for me to buy a $600 prom dress, I snuck it. My parents did not give me permission, but I also didn't have to think about whether or not my parents could pay the bills afterwards. They didn't make me return it. They were just kind of like, don't do that again. Like, don't sneak that. Like, you should have a conversation with us. I remember my dad saying that. But for you, it was completely different. And whenever we have to get rid of toys, because I'm always like, purge time.
That's the best. That's the best. Goodwill time.
Right? Because like there are toys that they just don't play with. And then we have grandparents and like people who love like our kids, family members that will send so many toys at holidays and birthdays that it gets to be too much and they don't play with it. And I'd like to get rid of it. And I don't have to think about whether or not later on if we're going to be able to afford it, because of my childhood and because of where we're at now, then I don't think about it as much. But for you, it is very different. Every single time we have to get rid of a toy, Drew's like, I don't know, like, you don't know if we're ever going to need it because you've expressed.
Well, I think that specifically that comes from, like, we went through a lot of things growing up. Like, we weren't military family or anything like that, but we moved 31 times before I hit the 6th grade. And so that, again, wasn't like military or jobs or anything. It was just like we couldn't pay the rent and stuff. And so we lost a lot of possessions during moves. But then we also had like natural disasters or stuff like one time our house got flooded, which like destroyed everything that we had in the storage shed. And then probably 6 months later, that same house caught fire and like destroyed everything. So as far as possessions and stuff like that, I go, yeah, I know I get sensitive and I'm a little like, are you sure you want to get rid of that? Like, shouldn't they want to keep that stuff?
He's
and
a
all
low-key
that?
hoarder.
It's funny how much your childhood influences you in the way you think.
And I've gotten better where I just like, now it's almost the opposite where I'm in the garage like, get rid of this. And she'd be like, you got rid of that? Like, that was mine. And I'm like, but it needs to be cleaned out.
I do that today with money because
so.
growing up that way, like I hoard dollars, like because I thought I would never have it, and I wasn't used to it, and now it's like. It's being frugal was a strategy at first. I was probably cheap at first. I would turn the lights off and unplug toasters for years. Okay, like it was that bad. But
Can you come to my house just like?
What are you talking about? You do it now.
Do you unplug light bulbs?
I need help.
Yes. So I finally transitioned into, well, one thing was I looked up the research and unplugging the light bulb saves you like 10 cents on a year. Okay, so I was like, I thought it was saving $1 a day. Well, no, it wasn't. It was just wasting my time because then I have to come home and remember, right? It's nothing worse than flipping the light. But anyway, it's still hard for that hoarder mentality is what it is. And some people hoard material stuff. Some people hoard money or just trinkets and stuff. And I think it's because you're used to not being able to replace that, like you said, or have it again. So you're like, and I'm getting better. Like the older I get, and she helps me because you didn't grow up with a lot either.
No, but I didn't know I didn't grow up with a lot till I was an adult. Like my mom, it was just my mom, and then it was 3 of us. Me, my sister, and my brother, who's a lot younger. But like my mom never showed that anything was like a struggle, like bills and stuff like that.
You didn't have Instagram.
No.
That's true though, because you couldn't compare yourself.
My mom like always made sure that we had food, and even like sometimes she like made clothes. We went to like Goodwill and stuff, but we always like had what we wanted, and so I didn't realize like how much she must have struggled until I was an adult because she didn't ever show us. And now I know like she was working 2 jobs and like trying to go to school and had 3 kids and like all this, but she always gave us what we needed and we never really had to worry because we didn't know what was going on.
I have a question. So I know that we've talked about how like our childhood like affects our parenting style, but like have you noticed like your daughter being a different race, how that has also affected your parenting style? Like have you adopted like I would say maybe traditional parenting styles in the Black community in any way? Or you feel like, no, I think it's just like we've just done a lot of research, or just kind of how things have, like how we were brought up, or things that we didn't like how we were brought up. So is it a mesh of the both, or have you?
I think the parenting style wise is like pretty unique to us and our experiences. Like, if we're just referring to like our parenting techniques, I think when we're teaching lessons and like teaching her lessons and like dealing with like situations and stuff, obviously that's a factor, but like purely when we're trying to decide what's best for her, I don't feel like I consider like what would somebody else do in this situation.
Okay.
I feel like I'm like what is best for her and like us.
So I think one thing that just in life we figured out is that everybody's guessing. Everybody. So you could read 5, 10, 20 parenting books and they'll all say something different, even if they're from the same type of community or culture. They all have different perspectives. Like we'll just talk about, and this is from a third party point of view. So I'm not an expert on this subject, but we'll just go back to the hair care thing. There's from what I see, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeena, but it seems like there's almost 2 different perspectives on the natural hair versus always having the hair completely done or kept up. So we follow some are like, no, just let your hair just be natural. It's beautiful, natural, and that it doesn't have to be cared all the time. And that's a perspective that's strongly thought of. And then the other one's like, no, it always needs to be styled and completely done. And if you do it natural, you're being lazy or not respecting your elders or whatever the case. So it seems like even within communities or within cultures, there's a difference of opinion. And I think this was with everything. And so I compare this also to like financial values, people's different perspectives. There's the Dave Ramsey approach. And then there's the,
Dave
use
Ramsey's
credit.
one is wrong though.
Yeah.
Let's all agree on that.
Right. But
Outdated.
it's outdated.
Everywhere.
Well, Dave Ramsey, like for me, it's like, it probably works for a large amount of people. Like, let's just take the credit card thing with him. Most people shouldn't have credit cards because they're not financially responsible to do them. But you can't just say no credit cards, because if you do know how to use them, they're usually beneficial. So for parenting for us, we try to like take tips and tricks from all approaches, from all cultures, and say, oh, that makes sense to me, or that works for us. And here's the other thing is like every child's different.
Yeah.
Every personality is different. And some respond more to taking something away than they take something verbally. And for some parents, they feel like they need to do something physical. Again, I'm not judging on any of these aspects, but we just work best for us. And then it's also your own values. So like even if Tiana would respond, at least in the moment, to a physical approach quicker than she would taking the iPad, that wouldn't feel right to us. So then we don't implement it. And that's just our thought and our value. And so I would say the other thing that I'm extremely thankful for in our relationship, and why I think it's worked so well for so long, is that marriage is what's the sacrifices or compromises. We have different approaches and different ideas sometimes. What we'll quickly do is get somewhere in the middle, right? Like I think that bedtime should be super strict. That way she stays in a routine. And she's like, well, what's the big deal in 30 minutes? And I was like, because there's no routine there. So then we go, okay, lay down by 8, but I'll lay with her for 15 minutes till she falls asleep. Because we were in this routine where she'll lay with Tiana for an hour and a half until she falls asleep.
We don't have to do that so much anymore, but I put her to bed. I still put her to bed every night, but when I wouldn't let her fall asleep alone when she was really little. Like I would lay with her and I wouldn't leave till she was asleep.
I think there are tons of different like parenting styles, and whoever you talk to, through cultures and races and male and female, and like there's just so many different ones.
If you two wrote a book and say different things,
right? I think really what it is being open-minded. Like that's the thing I've seen. If you like, even for people that we've talked to that are fostered or adopted, if their parents aren't open-minded, if they're so strict, so traditional, so stuck, that child has to fit that mold.
Yes.
And a lot of times being adopted, you won't fit that mold.
Right.
And so if your parents can't be open-minded to learning new hairstyles or going back to that childhood memory of, I think I could do this, and, or, being like working with your spouse or partner to come to a compromise and stuff like that. I think it really
for sure.
detrimental to your child.
Something I had to learn that I never considered as like for parenting and marriage is even if I think, and this does happen, like, even if I think Tiana's right, I like need to take your side in the moment sometimes. Does that make sense?
Oh, same team
Like,
parenting.
yeah.
We've
And
had
so,
to have
like,
this conversation.
Actually, we do this too,
Yeah.
where we'll tell our kids, sorry for interrupting, but it's a thing that we talked about very earlier in marriage. And it's like, even if we agree with our kid that, or one of us agree that, I think to teach kids, like, hey, you cannot split us. Because kids are smart. And sometimes they will pick and choose, and they know, like, I can get mom to say yes to this, or I can get dad to say yes to this. That I think it's really important to have a united front. And so we made that decision very early on. And our kids now know for sure, like, if mom says no and you go to dad and he says yes, if we find out, it's worse for you. Now it's no, and you're grounded, and we've taken away, like, some
And
things.
we let them know. We let the kids know, like, hey, why'd you go to mom for this? You know that the answer was going to be yes or no. You should have, And then it's like, now you not get that, but you not get it for even more time.
Oh,
We
we've had
never
to learn.
talked about it, and we had to learn in the moment, which like created a like argument between not like a permanent argument, but like it happened a couple times as she got older, like a little bit older, where like we weren't agreeing on necessarily like situation, or like maybe I thought he was being too harsh, or he thought I was being too laid back. And we realized after it happening like 1 or 2 times that we need to just agree and talk about it later. Yeah, and so I feel like that was unexpected for me and came a little bit with age as she could conversate more about situations. But do you feel like that was like weird?
Yeah, we've actually had to learn to ask. If she asks us something with just one of us around, we've had to learn to ask, well, what did mom say or what did dad say first? And even then she'll say, she said to ask you or something. She knows.
Yeah.
But we're really strict on the not lying. And so she knows that.
I think it's a very normal thing for that kid to do at that age. I mean, we have 5 kids, and I would say all of them have done it to us, right? And I think
Even a 2-year-old, he's starting to do it right now. I go up to mom, you got a brownie? And mom be like, no. He'll run upstairs to me and be like, hey, dad, like, you want a piece of brownie? I'll be like, yeah. And then he'll eat the other half. And then Jill will be like, you did not give him that brownie. I'll be like, no, he gave it to me.
And he said, actually said, mommy said yes.
Yeah.
Mommy said yes. And I'm like, no, I did not. You little stinker. I absolutely said no, And he'd be like, mommy said yes.
Mommy
Mommy said yes. And it's so hilarious, but I don't feel like it's done in a way of like meanness or manipulation. I think they're kids who are just recognizing something, and then because especially if your kids are smart, they're doing it's like path of least resistance. They want something, and they're just gonna try to get it in the best way or in the fastest way.
It's the traits and values you want your kids to have as a young adult and going into their career, but not as a kid.
Right. Yeah. One thing that we actually highly encourage with Tiana, and we've done this since she was 2 or 3, is negotiating. So like if we say, and we understand that like if you tell your kid bedtime in 10 minutes, that's what it should be. I can understand that perspective, and maybe that's easier. But if she'll go politely, so if she doesn't go, oh no, I need 5 more, that doesn't work. But if she goes, well, how about 5 more minutes? Or if I say 10 minutes, how about 15 more minutes? And I'll say, do you think that's fair? And she'll be like, 15. I'll say, and then you'll shut off the TV or whatever you're doing on your own. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. Because I think that's a good value. I think it's a good, because I said this before, a comment or something like that, but I said, just because it's authority doesn't mean it should just be abided by in general. Yes, there's maybe in general there's rules you should follow, but it doesn't mean it should be absolute, right? It's fine to have questions. It's fine to ask why. It's fine to even ask if something can be different. I mean, if we didn't learn how to negotiate in life, you will usually get screwed over, if I can say that on here, but you might, right? How about even buying a house or anything like that? If you just take face value for everything and take exactly what you're told, sometimes it'll just lead you down the wrong path. So anyway, we always want her to question or ask what if or why, or hey, have another suggestion. We're completely fine with that if it's done in a respectful manner.
Yeah.
But throwing an attitude, she knows that like if it's time to get off a game or time to go inside or time to go to bed, and it's met with an attitude, then there is no room for negotiation because we want this to be a respectful conversation.
Like we don't do because I said so. Like we both agreed, well, we don't do that. And if she says why, like we need to have an answer. And if we don't have an answer, I'll I don't really know why. I just said no because I don't want you to do that. But so unless it's a safety, she knows safety. So we say if I say no because of safety, she knows what that means. But that's a reason. That's not because I said so.
We have this thing we've had since she was 2. It's serious face.
Yeah.
So if I do this in public or wherever, if I do this,
there's no
she usually knows that it's time.
She'll ask why, like when we get back in the car or something, like, why are you serious? But we just don't want her to ever think like that. If she comes to us, we say, no, that's how it is because that's how we said it is. So it does make every situation more time consuming and more like difficult in the moment, but we're hoping in the long run it's
traditional parenting was probably easier in a lot of ways.
Sit down, be quiet.
I say what I say, and you do what you're supposed to do. And we were talking to a guy at the playground the other day, and you could tell he was a traditional parent. He was like, I get home from work at 5. My kids all know, house clean. You're gonna get the TV for 20 minutes. You eat dinner. You brush your teeth. You go to bed. You're in bed by 6:30. And I was like, 6:30?
Yeah, don't come out of your room after that.
Yeah, they don't. Well, they have to go to their room at 6:30 and shut the door because he's like, I don't want to hear it, right or wrong. This is how he parents. And I just don't want to hear it because I've had a long day at work. And I was like, and he said there's no questions, no fuss, no anything. And I'm sure there was probably a level of discipline that came to teach that with the kids. And again, right or wrong, or however you want to parent, but that probably is easier.
It's easier, but it also like you lose the relationship.
That's why I could never do it.
Lose, and like our son, our oldest, like he's in that preteen stage, and we're having such a hard time. But he also knows that I will sit with him and talk and talk and talk. That a lot of times when there is a big issue, because we're not the I told you so parents, we also do the same thing. That he will ask us why, and he will talk to us, and then he'll be like, "Okay, I just wanted to know. Can you make it quick? Because I don't want a whole long thing." but he also recognizes that we will talk to him, and that's so important.
Last night, because the night before, I was like, I always tell the kids like, "Good night, love you." And he's like, but do you love me? Like that whole preteen thing. And so he was just in fight mode then. So I just left it. The next night though, last night when we were having discussion, I just was able to talk through him. I said, hey, you asked this question last night, why do you think I'm doing like sitting here talking to you? He's like, well, to annoy me. That was his answer. Right. And I think that's probably what he was thinking. If he was in my shoes, that's how he would annoy me. And so I was able to stop and say, Panda, why do you think we've invested time like for you to code? Why do you think we did like a sleepover, me and you, and we did your favorite activities and favorite snacks and spent that time together? Like, why do you think I'm sitting here talking to you right now when I could be doing other things or I have work things to do? And he really couldn't say anything, right? I was like, it's so we could have conversations, so we can talk and without you giving me like daggers in your eyes and stuff. And that made him like chuckle a little bit. But basically being able to break through that barrier of like, oh, wait a minute, like this is someone who loves me, has spent time with me, actually cares about me and has invested in me. And so, yeah, I think like not just saying because I said so, hopefully what you're building there and what we're building with our children is the relationship, that goodwill, that good credit, building up that bank of like good experiences. So when you have a bad one, you can lean on like that relationship you've built.
I heard something one time where somebody said, I can't remember where I heard this or who said it, but they said the way to figure out, like, if you were a good parent, your kids will want to spend time with you when they're an adult. So basically, like, if your adult kids want to hang out with you, it means you did a good job. And that, like, made me think, oh, you really have to consider, like, parenting a long-term thing. Like, not, I need her to listen right now, but, like, it's a combination of things and how it will impact her over time and like what will she look back and remember.
Yeah, like you do have to be a parent first, but I think you can also have like a friend side to that thing. Yeah. Like when it comes to like trust and fun and all that stuff, you don't want to lose that. Definitely be a parent first because you can't be your child's best friend, or at least not a yes man to them, right? But you should have that that side of it, I believe. And so, I think it's just a constant balance. And also I want to acknowledge for, people listening too, that everybody on this podcast right now, we are in a privileged situation financially and with time that we can have this patience, that we can have this extra time to spend with them. And that, I don't know, if I had a job where I worked 8 to 7 and it was super stressful and I already had 3 kids and I was going through a divorce, or if I was a single parent, my patience level would probably be lower. My amount of time I spend with Tiana, the amount of times I say yes, or
you'd be in
sleeping with her in bed for an hour, like
survival.
So I want to acknowledge that too, and not be like out of touch reality with every situation. But from our point of view, and I think we all seem to be on the same page here. The more time you can spend, the more patience you can do. While it is harder and it's a larger investment, I think the ROI down the road, both for and just well-rounded in life. I think it'll be worth it. Yeah.
So this is off Reddit. How do you raise your children if they're multicultural or mixed? Mine are Korean/Chinese. Hi, Korean mom here. My husband is Chinese. We're both American, but I try to keep up with my Korean culture and do speak fluent Korean. My husband speaks fluent Mandarin, and yet both of us act white at home since we can't communicate with each other in our native languages. Our young elementary children, therefore, have been growing up mostly white, if you know what I mean. That is Americanized, and have lost a sense of what it means to be Korean or Chinese. The most exposure they get is through food. Kimchi, kalbi, I'm probably messing these names up, bao, dumplings, lo mein, etc., and Lunar New Year's festivals. They only speak English. My husband told me one day he feels sad that once our parents both die, our children won't have any connection to the Korean or Chinese culture anymore. So how do you guys keep that connection alive? I have some Mexican American friends who surprise me by saying they can't speak Spanish. I've never heard or seen that before. They are more American than they are Mexican too. Appreciating the fun parts of all cultures like anime, American food ranging from sushi to tacos and pop culture. I'm starting to wonder, how do we Americans adapt to this country, but also keep our legacy and roots?
I feel like we struggle with this because, like, me being Haitian and then you being like American, and I think it's something. Honestly, I think it's something as like generations go that you kind of just lose, because based on like the place that you live, like. I struggle with speaking French and Creole because it's hard. One, I despise your accent whenever you speak French, and I always feel like I need to correct it. But I also feel like it's really hard because it's just so much easier just to speak in English to communicate than having to go through like the whole, like, no, like I'm saying this, no, like this. And so it is really difficult.
Yeah, but here it just sounds like they're assimilating to the culture because, like, being American is a culture, right? And that's what they're starting to struggle with is like they grew up in totally different cultures and they're seeing their kids are fully assimilated to where they're currently living. How do they keep their traditions and culture alive?
Yeah, they're fully assimilated, but I think you don't have to assimilate doesn't mean you have to lose what you had before. Right? If they're born here, even though one's Korean, one's Chinese, I think that's like really, really hard. Like you can't, it doesn't make it any easier. And so it's like learning two different languages, hard that are both very difficult. Like people, it's like almost like a badge of honor if there's someone who did not grow up speaking either of those languages, who learn how to speak them because of the fact that they are very difficult and beautiful languages to speak. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is assimilation isn't bad. It's just, but I also feel like just because you assimilate doesn't mean that you forget everything else like you had before. Right. And so I think that's what they're speaking to. And I want to say that I don't think there's like a true right or wrong. Because I think about like adoptive parents when they adopt a child of a different race. It doesn't have to just be Black, but I know there are international adoption. And I think one of the things that a lot of adoptees like talk about is the fact that they feel like they lose that part. Because whether or not you become Americanized, physically you show physical aspects or attributes that show that you are not quote unquote American. And so then I feel like even though we're a melting pot, we still recognize each other's differences. So I don't know if we're a true melting pot. And so even if someone becomes assimilated, there are still physical attributes that show that we are different, that we come from a different race, or maybe originally came from a different, or would it be like ancestrally, we come from a different place. And so I think that's like the thing that they're speaking about. And I think it's just, sad as it is, it's just going to take more effort on those parents, that they'll have to do the hard part of, like, even if it's difficult to speak in a different language and it's going to take some more time, they'll just have to do it anyways if it really is something that they care about.
The first question you need to answer for you and your family is, how important is that to you? How important is it to keep the culture alive from where you came from, or what you want your kids to experience? And then you got to consider it from your kids' perspective too, especially if you're multicultural. Sorry, I struggled with that one. Because you could be like, oh, let's say Rihanna now. Let's say, well, it's not really important to us if we experience or have these cultural things in us. But you're making that decision for your child too, who may be of a different race than you. Well, that's not fair. So you guys pretty much know how we not solve this, but help with this is we travel. So we travel a lot.
We chose we chose to live somewhere. We chose to live in the city, and specifically neighborhoods with the highest Black population out of the whole state of West Virginia.
Still very low.
Yeah, it's still low,
Yeah.
but it's like we.
The best we could for our state.
Like the houses we wanted, like the areas like that where we looked at living. Once we looked at the demographics, we were like, we can't live here. It's not like we're not gonna take her somewhere where she's gonna be like the one of the two Black children in the whole school.
Land
just
in
so
West
we could have
Virginia
a nicer
and be
house.
rural.
Yeah, so we chose to live like downtown in the city, and so that her preschool, her daycare, like the schools around us all would be more beneficial in that aspect. Sometimes we have to explain, like before Tiana, like our friends aren't all white. Like we're not just in this little like white community. We didn't grow up with only white people in a white neighborhood.
And we're also not just seeking it out just to have Black friends. It just happened naturally. But I think that how important is it to you and your family? Because that's another big thing I'm kind of a fan of, is like, once you marry and have your own children, that is your family, your beliefs, your set of household rules, how you parent. All that should become ultimately your way of doing things. I don't think that means you should just forget things or forget what your parents did for you or forget your culture. I'm not saying that. But what becomes important to you and how you're going to raise your children is ultimately up to you. And so first and foremost, how important is that to you? If it is very important, well, now you're going to have to seek it out if you don't live in that culture. You're going to have to go to events in your neighborhood. You're going to have to find community events. You're going to have to find meetups. You're going to have to travel to these places. And then internationally too, if it's an internationally based culture, you're going to have to seek these things out and do what you're able to within your budget or your means or your time. But if it's not very important to you and your children, you've all discussed this, or your children are the same race and culture of you anyway, then maybe that's what's just going to happen, because it's all just going to evolve as we get older. Yeah. Like you probably won't be as into your Haitian culture as your great grandparents.
I'm the first generation Haitian American.
Oh, okay. So your parents are
my parents are from Haiti.
So would you say that they grew up more in the Haitian culture?
Oh, yeah.
So just by naturally living here, I would say it's going to get diluted some as
time goes on.
Yeah.
And I think I alluded to this earlier. So you're right. As you live in a different country, as time goes on, you have more kids. It just becomes where you lose like one. It'll be like, I think it's usually the first to go is like the language. And then the next is like a lot of the culture, like traditions and customs. And then the next generations, like they lose mostly all of it. They just like physically may
like
have
food too.
Food. And that's not because you don't care or dismissive of the culture. I'm sure you think it's quite beautiful and you're proud of your heritage and where you came from. It's not that you don't care, you're dismissive. It's just not readily available here, understandably, because of just your geolocation. You don't live in Haiti. So you'll do the best you can and attend those events or be around those people and your family. But if the next generation continues to live in America, well, let's say 2 generations from now, one of your children or great grandchildren moved to Asia for work and end up living there and marry an Asian, and then their children are going to have different culture. Like, it's going to be really hard to always keep the same cultures and traditionals generation to generation to generation unless you literally stay put.
I always had an issue, like identity issue with it, where I am Middle Eastern, I'm Syrian, but I didn't grow up around like the traditions and the culture, but I like that I'm Syrian, and I will tell, it even happens now, and you'd think like as a 30-something-year-old I'd be like more confident, but where I'll tell somebody like that's Syrian or Middle Eastern, like as a like bonding point, like, oh, I'm Syrian too, and they'll start to talk to me in Arabic, and I get embarrassed immediately because I can't speak Arabic, and then they're like, nobody taught you like our language, and it's like super uncomfortable, and it's not my fault, but I'm like, no, but I wish I knew it, and it's like I can identify in that way, but I feel like I can't enough. And so like I work with surgeons that are like Middle Eastern and stuff, and they will be like, did you learn Arabic yet? Like, it's a shame nobody taught you. And they're not being mean, it's just so important to them. And so I feel like it is a weird thing to navigate, like without going back and living there. Like you can't, I don't know.
So did you find yourself hoping or wishing that like your mom had done a better job of exposing you to that side of your culture?
My mom did her best, and she made Middle Eastern food, which is not like her natural food that she made. Like all growing up, she made Middle Eastern food for my sisters and I, and like she did her best. So, but I wish that I grew up and like spent the summers there and like knew how to speak Arabic and like really understood more, like was more involved with the culture, but it's just not how it played out, and I don't regret it, and I'm not like upset, but I feel like that I did miss out on that part of like my heritage, and now it's like it's just kind of weird, like I'm halfway in, halfway out, like and when we go to the Middle East, like I love traveling there and stuff, but I go like, should I even mention that I'm Syrian? Because like, why? Because then they're just like, oh, you don't speak Arabic? Like, okay.
It's something that I think a lot of people who are biracial or children who are adoptees talk about. Like they want to connect and they know like it's part of them, but then also feel so disconnected from it because they didn't grow up with it or they don't know the language, and it's like this in between that they always feel like they're in. And so I understand, because even though I'm like, I grew up speaking Creole and I know a lot about the cultures, because I've become so Americanized, I feel like I still sometimes feel, probably not as much as other people who have fully like removed, not personally remove themselves, but they feel removed. They feel like in their middle. I sometimes feel the same way too, because I'm like, oh, well, am I really Haitian enough? Like I don't do all the things that like other Haitian families do, or I know all the things and I don't do all the traditional things that my family did, and I still have some of it in my home, but not all of it, and it makes me feel like in this middle weird space in the middle. We are so happy that we had the Schoeller family on our podcast today. It's been like, this is such a fun, pleasant conversation. I like feel like we could have kept going. I mean, hearing about like how.
I mean, my question is like, when are you guys coming back? Right?
I know. I was thinking that we could. I feel like we could talk for 8 hours.
Out a 6th birthday party where you guys go get your hair braided, and me and John will go
you let me
to
know.
the local goat cart.
Tiana's 6th birthday. Come here,
Yeah.
Atlanta. I have some people that I know that would do a fantastic. If she needs a curly cut or anything, we could all make it like a fun day.
What was really nice about this is we're vloggers and we do Q&A sometimes, but we never really get the platform just to like talk and say our side, and especially with like-minded individuals that like in a similar experience, it's just been really refreshing and been really almost therapeutic. To just talk about it. And so I don't know if you'll tell them, the audience, this or not, but we went way over time because we could literally do this for another 5-6 hours for sure if the producer wouldn't just leave. But it's been really nice. We thank you guys so much for having us on and giving us this platform.
Thank you for coming, flying for all from West Virginia.
Yep.
So that was a really great, I felt like, episode with the Schoeller family. Like I said, I feel like we could have gone on and chat with them. It's so like interesting because we are so different, I feel like, but also we have so many similarities, and that sometimes it's just nice to meet with other families who I guess
It's weird sometimes how it comes so natural for like you're in these communities of adoption and fostering and multicultural families. You do experience a lot of the same things, whether like the Reddit story, whether it's Korean, Chinese, African American, Haitian American, Caucasian. Once you start mixing cultures, I think find a lot of similarities in the struggles that we go through.
Yeah, and so I am just so glad that we had them on our podcast. And I, like you said, I definitely feel like we should have them back.
For sure. My segment is I've heard this before. This was a survey I saw about 10 years ago of how important, or I mean, it's important to us because we're multicultural, but how many diverse friends do you actually have as a white person in America? Right.
The numbers,
and I looked it up before and it was pretty high. And so I got recent statistics because I wanted to make sure it was still on track. So this was actually released May 24th of 2022. So only 2 years ago. And basically what this survey found is that friendship networks of white Americans continue to be 90% white.
So basically when people are like, hey, I'm not racist, I have a black friend, they're lying?
They have one black friend. No, they're not lying. They got one black friend. You know, whether they met that friend at like, you know, Target or, you know, the neighborhood grocery store.
Okay, but here's the difference. I recognize, and this may be a cultural thing, I recognize how like black people, how we say friends is different than how other cultures will say
That's
friends.
true.
Because I know, for me, there's a difference between friends and acquaintances. And I don't know if the same people that white people are saying, oh, I have a black friend, if that black friend would say, am I your friend? If they would say friend or acquaintance.
Yeah, because this is also a survey of white people too.
Yeah, and so for that, yeah.
So they're
I don't
self-reporting.
know. I would say that one black friend that all these white people are saying that they're friends with is not just the one black person. If that black person would actually feel the same way of like, yeah, I would say this is my friend, or hey, no, I would say we are work acquaintances or we work together. So I feel like that would be something that I would want to hear like from the other side, because I know for me, it's like super diverse, but I also feel like who I married also influenced that as well. But I wouldn't even call my family friend. I mean, yes, they're my friends too.
Well, in the same survey, African Americans or people that are black have the most diverse friend group. So they surveyed a bunch of different cultures and religions and political parties and all of that. And they found that on the opposite side of that, black people have the most diverse group of friends.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I can tell you growing up, like we were exposed to different cultures and races. But if I had to pick someone from my childhood or growing up to go to ask about hair care and stuff like that, I can't think of anybody right off the top of my head.
Oh, really?
You know, and that's what you're saying. Like, even having a black friend, are you close enough to these friends to go to it for advice?
But that's what I would consider being a friend. Because I tell adoptive parents, like, hey, if you're going to adopt a child of a different race, that child shouldn't be the first friend or the first person that you really know of that race, that you should already have someone, but also have a genuine friendship. Because, like, I said this a bunch. If you were to have an accident and you could not, like, there was nobody else, you should be able to call that friend, right, of that different race and be like, I need you to come get me some pants, maybe some diapers and some wipes, and I need your help because something happened. I feel like that is like a true friendship, which that is really important. So that's the difference between me. My friend, I could be able to call up and be like, I need you to come pick up this. I have a funny story to tell you. That's what I want. And that's the type of friendship and that I think is like what I would consider as a friendship. Because an acquaintance, I would not call you up like that. And so, I don't know. It is very interesting to hear, but in a way, I'm kind of not surprised. I don't know, but it also just goes to show that we still have a lot to work on because I don't think it should be like that. I think the numbers should be different. And if the numbers are like that, then obviously maybe it's also the reason why we have issues that we do here in the US.
I think it definitely makes it harder if you're not in a multicultural family to be exposed to like if 90% of your friends are white and you all have the same culture and the same values and the same thoughts, you're not really exposed to other things like that. And then when you do encounter those things, maybe there's a barrier, closed-mindedness there. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you guys for being here. Peace.
Bye.